What force wrought this destruction? Mother, father, slain as they sleep. The town has the stench of death and demons upon it. By their souls, I swear vengeance on these creatures of the underworld.
There are games that entertain you. There are games that challenge you. And then, there are games that change everything. Today, we're going back in time to the year 1996, to a lone, cold December night, when Blizzard North released a little project that would end up defining an entire genre, inspiring decades of imitations and dragging millions of players straight to the depths of hell and having them love every second of it. This is Diablo. Not Diablo 3, not Diablo 4, not any of those numbered sequels. This is the original, grim, haunting, perfect storm of terror and triumph that started it all. And trust me, once you hear that cathedral bell tolling, there is no turning back. Let's set the scene. It's 1996. The Nintendo 64 is fresh out on store shelves. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is still airing on TV. People are playing Tomb Raider and Quake on PC. And the idea of an online multiplayer RPG? Yeah, it was barely even a thing outside of a few dedicated MUD communities. Enter Blizzard North. A small team. Just a few dozen developers. Led by David Brevik and the Schaefer brothers. Their idea was deceptively simple. You take the dungeon crawling RPG experience, strip away all the complicated menus and slow pacing, build it up, make it faster, more brutal, make it instantly addictive. You weren't going to roll a dice for every move or be stuck navigating submenus of submenus. You were going to click and click and click, and every click was a kill. Every click meant something. At its core, Diablo is simple. You choose a character, be it a warrior, rogue, maybe a sorcerer, and then you descend into a dungeon beneath the ruined town of Tristram. That's it. No real overworld, no escort the sheep missions, just you, the cursed cathedral, 16 floors of monsters, and the Lord of Terror waiting for you at the very bottom. When it comes to your classes, the warrior is the tank, all about heavy armor and brute strength. And then you have the sly rogue, the agile sniper, deadly with bows. Finally, the sorcerer, the glass cannon, devastating spells, but fragile. And from the first click of your mouse, Diablo did something most RPGs at the time did not dare. It felt good to control. You moved smoothly by pointing and clicking. Attacks were instant. Loot dropped like candy from piñatas. Every door you opened, every chest you smashed, it felt like a calculated risk. And death? Let's just say death was brutal. There were no checkpoints, no autosave feature every 5 seconds. You died, you lost everything. Welcome to hell. To understand Diablo, you've got to descend into the roots of gaming's darkest dungeons. Because Diablo didn't just crawl out of hell. It was forged in the fires of hell. Let's rewind to the early 80s. Games like Rogue, Moria, and Angband were pioneering procedurally generated dungeons and permadeath. Diablo began as a turn-based roguelike in that tradition. But Blizzard said, real time or bust. And just like that, the Clickfest was born. But the real terror, that came from the world itself. The atmosphere oozed with influences. H.P. Lovecraft, Paradise Lost, even Conan the Barbarian in Dungeons and Dragons. The dark churches, cursed kings, cultists, and ancient evils weren't just spooky dressing. They were drawn from a long legacy of Gothic horrors and grim, dark fantasy. The loot and stat system? Right out of the tabletop RPG playbook. The constant descent into deeper madness. That's straight Lovecraft. And if you've ever looked at Warhammer's decaying cathedrals and thought, this looks familiar, you're not wrong. Diablo was a love letter to every grim, dark thing the devs ever obsessed over. All of it filtered through Blizzard North's design ethos. Keep it simple, make it amazing. But what really made Diablo unforgettable wasn't just the gameplay loop. It was the atmosphere. Visually, Diablo was stunning for its time, especially for an isometric game. The dark, Gothic art style. The way torches flickered on the cold stone walls. The ambience, the blood splatters, the cursed moaning of unseen monsters in the deep, dwelling darkness. Even on a clunky 1990 CRT monitor, Diablo felt real in a way that few games managed to. And then, there's the sound. Man, the sound. Matt Uelmen's soundtrack, that lonely guitar plucking away in Tristram. It's so iconic, and the second you heard those first few notes, you knew you were home. Home in a burning, damned village, crawling with unforgotten horrors. Tristram is a ghost town, not the literal sense, at first, but in the way it feels. It's quiet, broken, haunted. But what makes it feel unforgettable isn't just the music, or the fog, or the ruined chapel. It's the people. People still clinging to the edge of that decay, holding out hope, or something close to hope. Let's talk about Deckard Cain, the weary old scholar in the center of it all. He's not just a quest giver. He's a fixture, a relic, the last of the Herodrum, and he knows it. Every time you return to town, Cain is there, waiting, always with that iconic line.
Stay a while and listen.
It's not just a catchphrase. It's an invitation to sit down, to feel the weight of the lore, the tragedy, the burden. Cain is the game's consciousness, the voice of history in a world that's trying to forget. And then there's Wirt, the cynical, one-legged hustler hiding behind the cows. He's the opposite of Cain. Not wise, not noble, just bitter, greedy. But even that made Tristram feel real. Because war doesn't just leave behind heroes. It leaves behind scavengers, survivors. Wirt is what's left when childhood meets horror. We had Jillian, the barmaid, who's terrified, but still shows up every day. Farnham, the drunk, who saw too much in the catacombs and drowns his sorrows, trying to make his mind forget what he's seen. There's Ogden, the innkeeper, trying to preserve some shred of normalcy. And Pepin, the healer, the only real thread of comfort in a place where hope comes to die. None of these characters fight. They don't cast spells or swing swords, but they anchor the world. They give the horror context. They made every run back to town feel like more than a pit stop. They made Tristram feel lived in, loved. tragically lost. And somehow, even decades later, they live on. In memes, remakes, fan art. Deckard Cain has become a legend. Wirt has become a running joke, a vendor, a corpse, and eventually a boss in Diablo 3. The town of Tristram was damned, but its people, those broken, believable NPCs, lived. They breathed life into that damned city, gave it a soul. And that's one of the reasons we remember Tristram. It's the shattered people that were a part of it, that made it come to life, that made it fill our imaginations and give us a reason to want to save that damned city. And the bosses, oh man, the bosses. If Diablo taught us one thing early, it's this. The hellish monsters, they're not just cannon fodder. They're characters themselves. The Butcher.
Fresh meat.
Few people forget the first meeting with the Butcher. You're low level, unprepared, and this huge, cleaver-wielding psychopath charges you down like a slasher villain from a R-rated movie. The Skeleton King. You feel clever, getting through the early levels. You're starting to feel more confident, more comfortable. And then King Leoric himself, the Mad King, shows up with a royal army of undead soldiers, overwhelming you, piling on you. You make your way down, climbing further into the depths of the cathedral. Finally, you run into him, the Archbishop Lazarus, the one who betrayed everyone to the Lord of Terror Diablo. Facing Lazarus feels like a moment of pure dread. A traitor and a herald of doom, wrapped into one final warning before you reach the end. Finally, you open that last door, descending into the final level of the cathedral. And then, Diablo. No cutscene, no heroic fanfare, just a boss fight. A boss fight you had to claw through, one bloody click at a time. When you finally dragged him down, it felt like you hadn't just beaten the game, you had survived the very fires and pits of hell itself. And then, in 1998, Diablo got an unlikely second life, this time on the Sony PlayStation. Developed by Climax Studios and published by EA, the PlayStation port was a miracle and a mess, depending on who you ask. The good bits? Well, full voice acting. Same great dungeon crawling loop, plus couch co-op. Yes, you and a friend could survive the pits of hell together. And then the bad. Load times. Oh, the load times. And then, you also did not have the online multiplayer component from the PC version. Consoles really weren't ready for it just yet. You wouldn't really see, fully online multiplayer games until the likes of the Dreamcast and the GameCube. The controls, playing on a PlayStation controller, it really did not have the same satisfying controls or intuitive feeling as clicking the mouse and using the keys on the keyboard for the PC version. And the graphics were blurrier. The resolution suffered a major downgrade from the PC version. But still, for console players who missed the original, or just wanted to bring Diablo into the living room, it was a gift. And it proved that Diablo wasn't just a PC hit, it was a video game phenomenon. It's not just an exaggeration to say that Diablo changed gaming forever. Before Diablo, RPGs were mostly slow, turn-based affairs. Fun, but inaccessible to the most casual of players. After Diablo, you had games like Torchlight, Path of Exile, and even Borderlands owes Diablo. Even Destiny owes Diablo. Every game that gives you that satisfying loot drop, that dopamine hit after killing something, You can trace the origins straight back to Tristram, straight back to hell. Diablo also redefined what multiplayer could be. Battle.net, Blizzard's online services, launched with Diablo's first patches. And for the first time, you could team up with or betray total strangers online in a persistent world. It was revolutionary. It had been done a few times by other games, but never in the way that Diablo made it feel. And for Blizzard themselves, they went from being those Warcraft guys to absolute kings of the PC gaming sphere. Without Diablo, there's no Diablo 2. Without Diablo 2, there's no World of Warcraft. And without World of Warcraft, gaming history looks very different today. Even today, almost 3 decades later, Diablo's impact is everywhere. And every loot drop, every desperate corpse run after a brutal death, every single time you hear the words procedurally generated dungeon and get a little thrill, you might not realize it, but you're still hearing the haunting echoes of Tristram's broken bell tolling in the burning night. And as for Diablo himself, let's just say evil never truly dies. It's just one click away. Well, that's all I have to say today, guys. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.